Kit by KUYUAN. I, Christian Alphonse Winter, soon to be free of my life, leave this final record of its course. I pause. The wine makes for poor ink, bleeding through the pages and blurring my words, but is legible enough. I rub my icy hands, trying in vain to stop their shaking. Even at death, something inside me recoils at the thought of opening my veins to fill my pen. I dip the nib once more in dregs of wine. I leave you the tale of my curse and all my thoughts, feelings, and actions. That one day, should my corpse be unearthed, that someone in some age might grant use the peace of believing in my innocence. Not that anyone will ever read this once you're gone, Kit, I think to myself, because no one will ever find you here. I fan the pages, careful not to dim the flickering candle that illuminates them, my only companion in this deep and soundless dark. A bitter cold wraps around me like a cloak. Stale air escapes from my shallow lungs. The cellar always seemed so spacious, row upon row of thick shelves proudly displaying my father's prized vintages. Now its walls surround me like a tomb, and indeed, for all intent, soon shall be. The heavy oak and iron door behind me is sealed shut, locked, barred, and barricaded for good measure. Every other living soul in the castle has long fled. I've been alone here for 3 days, marked, as time is impossible to tell, by each fitful, exhausting sleep. I pick up the pen and feebly try to write, though my thoughts are dim and clouded as ink. To you, my unfortunate reader, I bequeath to you a handful of candles, this journal, and one empty and one half-empty bottle of wine. The candles were left strewn about, either by a careless servant or errant thief, or both. Fortunately for me, the wine, my only libation here, my state of mind and sobriety are about what you might imagine. The journal I was carrying with me when I was called here, a leather-bound tome embossed with a raven in a birch tree, the crest of my house. Its presence is a small comfort, but one I will take. Time is against me, and yet the words still fight me, refusing to form. The aching in my heart threatens to overtake me again, rack my body with sobs, wrest the air from my lungs. It isn't fair. What have I done to deserve this? I have strived to be good all my life, beautiful, diligent, and a willing student and heir, a loving brother and son. And this is my mercy and reward both? Yet, in the other corner of my heart, an old doubt creeps upon me, like ivy on the castle walls, the burden I shouldered through life. In the face of suffering, I was told I should not grieve the hand I was dealt. Yet now, at this reminiscence of at my life's end, can I truly convince myself that the world was wrong about my hand and its tragedies? Can I be guilty by the fact of my own existence? Evidently, I was never a man of strong convictions. I set aside the pages, looking for a distraction from my thoughts. Of course, down here, there is no abundance of options. I sigh and begin to stand. Time to take a turn about the cellar for the 100th time. I move slowly, candle in hand, gingerly feeling along the stone walls, casting my faint light upon the rows. I blithely wonder if a wine cellar can still be called such, stripped of such precious liquid. The walls gape with barren shelves, empty crates left strewn about. Perhaps some prudent members of the household thought it wise not to let the remainder of the family's priceless vintages be buried here with me. Spirits no even mother couldn't have emptied every last drop alone. The same cannot be said of the few things that remain. Objects of little value, too difficult and cumbersome to carry, or simply missed by opportunistic hands, abandoned here to rot with me. As I walk, I spy a lone bottle lying on its side, and what seems to be stacks of unmarked tin cans. I gingerly pick up the bottle and read the label. It's an Amontillado sherry, a favorite of Mother's. The can appears unlabeled and haphazardly stacked. They are also all unfortunately empty. I pick one up and tap it. It rings hollow. Perhaps the kitchen staff was lacking in space. Regardless, I move on. Further on, I spy an old painting and Chris's phonograph tucked away on a shelf. As if my feet have a mind of their own, I shuffle closer. The painting is a landscape done in oils, depicting the castle and lake surrounding it. I recall it was painted long before even my grandfather was born. Mother always said it was rather gloomy, and it was likely her taste that sealed its fate. That is, of being sealed away in some forgotten corner here. Though I suppose she isn't wrong. Lakes, seas, and fog are rarer subjects for landscapes, reminiscent as they are of the other's shore. This one in particular is a fine piece, faithfully capturing the rolling mists of Castle Winter. But I turn away, unwilling to gaze at it further. Not due to any strong agreement with Mother's artistic sentiments, but because I need no further reminder of why I've been locked here. And this, I never imagined I would see this again. I would see this here again of all places. It's a sturdy, hand-turned wax cylinder phonograph, imported from far away at great cost. Though covered in dust, the wood is smooth and polished, and the brass horn glints against my candle's light. I briefly consider using it to record my story instead of a journal's wine-soaked pages. But There are no recording cylinders stored with it, and neither do I want to look at it for long, let alone touch it. I move on. Finally, I see the outline of what seems to be a large wooden chest. It's made of rough dark wood, plain and very, very old, larger and more aged than my grandparents' steamer trunk, the one that Chris and I would hide in during our childhood games. Coils of rope wrap and tie around it like serpents. I don't recall seeing it here or anywhere in the castle for that matter before. It could have lain forgotten for decades, even longer, lost behind shelves and crates until someone unearthed in it hopes of ferrying away more of my family's heirlooms. If that is the case, it seems they were forced to abandon the idea. The chest's weight looks considerable. I push against it. It doesn't budge. The ropes, though tight on the other hand, are rotted away in places and look like they could be undone with persistence. Secret family treasures could hardly be advantageous to me in my present circumstance. Yet, though the chances are slim, the chest could still hold something of use. A pot of ink that hasn't dried up in decades since it was hidden, perhaps. Who could say? I decide to attempt to open it. Why not? This is my family cellar, so naturally it falls under my possession. Not for very long, of course, but I digress. I consider my options. Unraveling the ropes would require more finesse than I could manage, even had I not required an extra hand for my candle. The candle. It could burn the ropes, but just as easily set the wooden box itself aflame. What agency I have other than the remainder of my life is little, but I would rather not meet a fairy end here. That leaves severing the ropes somehow. Well, I have had the fortune of being locked in a wine cellar. A piece of glass would serve well. I amble back to where I kept few belongings and pick up an empty bottle of red. I consider how I might break it without making a mess of things, or myself, and in the end simply let it fall to the floor. Cautiously, I pick up a large shard and slowly return to the chest, avoiding the sharp, jagged remains of a once priceless vintage. With a candle in one hand and a shard of glass in the other, I cut at the rope, millimeter by aching millimeter. Here I am, about to die alone in a cellar, and the last sacred act and perhaps greatest accomplishment of my lamentably short life will have been satisfying my dying curiosity. After spirits know how long, the ropes give away. I pause, letting my hands and shoulders rest, and the candle's light flickers out as I crack the lid open. Cursing, I fumble for a match from my pocket. I'm aware immediately of the echoing beat of my heart in my ears. The hours alone here have done little to assuage the complete and awful dread that comes from finding myself in complete blackness. It is utterly, deeply, despairingly lonely. Slowing my breath to steady myself, I let my eyes adjust to the candlelight and stare straight back at a human skull. It takes some time for my mind to register It's difficult to tell at first. Some manner of wooden implements are lodged firmly in its eyes, sockets, and similar instrument in the mouth. The remainder of the skeleton's remains lie curled up in a box, the bones of its hands and feet bound uncomfortably by some rotting rope, and a final wooden implement, no, a stake, sharpened like a railway spike, lies in its ribcage, stuck fast. Murder, then. As I release the breath I did not realize I was holding, I feel a sharp pain course through my hand. I have gripped the broken glass so tightly, it's drawn blood. Of all the things I'd imagined, this is not what I dreamed the chest would hold, and yet it lies before me thus. After the initial shock, I retain my composure. Of course, there should be a corpse in the cellar. Why not? Though I wasn't expecting one other than mine. In some part of my mind, I'm aware that at any other time or place, I would be horrified. But here and now, I can only look at the subject of my grim discovery with a strange sense of camaraderie. Why? The gravity of what is surely great, deep, terrible family secret, only just uncovered, changes nothing about my present circumstances. None save that, in a morbid sense, I am no longer alone. Forgive me for disturbing you, I addressed the bones tiredly. I did not imagine I would share this tomb with another. Curled up in a box, the skeleton looks so fragile, almost delicate. Its bound hands are smaller than my own. Its height would surely only reach my chest standing upright, if that. A woman, or a very young person then. A pang of sympathy rings through me. Somebody has harmed you and left you to be forgotten. It seems we share the same fate as well. Nowhere in my family history can I recall a soul who went missing, or more sinisterly, one whose body was never found. It is confounding to have such a mystery appear before me, with no sliver of hope in solving it. Another question to leave this world without ever answering. A morbid tale with a morbid riddle. Chris, you would love this. For better or for worse, I have found my answer from the box. But now, what to do with my new cadaverous comrade? I decide to pour the skeleton a toast. It must be some time since you've had a drink. Truthfully, I haven't had the occasion to make a toast these past few years either. I look about for an empty container, then recall the cans I saw. I return and retrieve one empty as expected, along with a bottle of sherry. To good health, prosperity, and our new, surely brief friendship. I smiled bitterly as I clinked the bottle against the half-filled container. May we rest well for eternity. Having drunk my fill of the bittersweet sherry, I retrieve my diary and return my pen to my sordid tale. I, Christian Alphonse Winter, soon to be free of my life, leave this final record of its course. I leave you the tale of my curse and all my thoughts, feelings, and actions. that one day, should my corpse be unearthed, that someone in some age might grant me the peace of believing in my innocence. I was born minutes after my sister, Christina, in a bitter winter of 645. My parents thought themselves blessed, a daughter and son at once. Indeed, my earliest memories are of their love and warmth. As a child, I wanted for nothing. As a child, I was ignorant of the stare of my family's fortunes. I was aware that I was happy and cared for. I knew not that our family's power had been slowly sapped over decades, like a tree stricken with blight. Our territories in Whitehurst hungrily swallowed by the other great houses. That our household staff, when I was small, was a fraction of its size during my grandfather's boyhood. That the wild fields overrun with foliage surrounding the lake were once grand gardens that hosted gatherings for kings and queens. That my father, like his father before him, could only take bolder and bolder risks in both investments and alliances in his attempts to restore our power with all the manner and mania of a gambler. But for a child, those were uneventful years, though not free of our own worries. As far back as I can remember, Chris loved to frighten me with tall tales, teased from the lips of servants or from forgotten corners of the ancient family library. She was fascinated by things that crept through the night or stalked through the mists, cursed to walk the earth, eternal, never to cross the other shore. I did not think it out of the ordinary when she asked me if I had ever seen something, anything, a shadow, or simply a thing that lurked about, assuming it was yet another ploy to scare me. Yet her voice and manner this time had gravity to it that did not belie any trickery. "I'm not teasing, Kit. Do you not feel it at times? Sometimes something watching you?" she said. I asked her what she meant. "I feel as if something is staring at me, unblinking like a vulture, waiting to swoop in on its wings." I believe that I ran off and cried, unwilling to listen to any more of this mystery monster that would swoop down and peck at me. She never mentioned it again, but I have, every so often, seen my sister look over her shoulder with an unsettled mew, as if she were the unwilling object of some case I could never sense. My family's fortunes would continue to wane as Chris and I climbed slowly to adulthood. In my 13th year, my father lost his trading vessel at sea. Scarcely any of its value could be recovered. The ship's sudden disappearance, so bizarre, auditors could only see it as a poor attempt at fraud. Supposedly, it vanished into mist, and neither ship nor crew were ever seen again. I remember my father's fury those months. The long hours, days, and nights at his desk, the endless meetings and shouting matches with his partners, business partners. The shouting matches with Mother. The way that the very air would grow taut, and still when he entered a room, and remained that way even without his presence. Even if I had been cleverer, more diligent in my studies, perhaps I could have changed things, fixed things, lessened his burdens, but I was ever as useful as a dull blade to the trunk of a tree. The following year, during a visit to our estate, my cousin Franz was injured in a fencing accident. My aunt, who never seemed to enjoy her visits with us, a feeling quite mutual to Chris and myself, flew into a rage, claiming it was a consequence of spending any time with so misfortunate a family. I recall feeling a little guilty, wishing it meant she would cease her visits for a while. My aunt and cousin were never kind to me. Franz would tackle me or pull on my hair, and when I could only stare at him in loathing, he taunted me for looking like a vulture. Ugly, my locks a mess about my face, blue eyes staring hard ahead lest I break with tears. My dear cousin, I'm sorry for your fate, for it should now My dear cousin, I'm sorry for your fate, for it should now shall seal mine as well. My hands shakes. I cannot tell if it's the cold, the alcohol, or rage. I thought myself at peace with my faith. Well, it seems the mind is fickle. I stare at the pages with equal amounts of weariness and disgust. I stare at the pages. Why must I perform this farce of final rites for myself? Why not seize this, except that no one will light a candle for me, nor pray for the mists of the other shore to part for my soul? For if I could not control my fate in life, then what of death? Wraith, spirit, demon, what have you, I cannot be sane to give a lick of credence to fairy tales. But for a moment, I wish with all the venom in my heart that they might be true. The living will still live beneath the glorious sun. Live and breathe and smile and dance while I lie cold in the cellar. I bury my head in my arms to rest my sight a moment, but exhausted from the mental effort, I drift off into nothingness. The rain is ceaseless, pouring. The candles were quite obviously forgo, but the flowers will be ruined swiftly as well. It had looked clear in an hour prior, but bad luck again, of course. It matters little to me. My feet are planted in the mud, but I feel as a ghost, at once present and distant from his somber entourage. I look for Chris, not with me beneath my umbrella, wondering if she's warm. Chris is not here. Every time I'm forced to remember is a knife in my heart. Chris is not here. A voice rings out distantly, but I pay little attention. We pray for this soul to find peace, our beloved daughter, sister, friend. May she be guided through the mists to paradise eternal. I feel a gloved hand squeeze my arm, more of its owner's support than mine. Mother holds a bouquet of lilies in one arm and tugs at me with the other. I follow obediently, wielding the umbrella as a shield while she kneels by the water, scattering the white flowers over its surface. Voices whisper like the wispy murmuring of insects. How cold. They did say he was aloof. Not even a tear for his sister. What a pitiable family. How could they know? How could they know that the kit that stands in the mud before them is an empty shell, unable to cry or laugh or scream, broken, his heart gone along with you? Something white catches my eye. At first I think it's a stray lily, but it billows like curtains, like a woman's white dress. I dropped the umbrella. I wade deep into the lake, ignoring the torrent of rain, the startled cries. Soon, I can no longer hear them, nor feel the cold of the water. I am no longer by the lake. Everything is blackness around me. But she is still there, a specter in white. Chris? Chris, I shout. The figure is indistinct, her image swirling and shifting before me like mist. The figure is... I can't see her eyes. I can't see if she's who I hope or fear she is. She does not move her mouth, but I hear a voice all the same. It's familiar, but I cannot be sure if it's hers. It's so distant and faint, cracked and crumbling like sand. Kit, begin. We only have so many... Chris, is it you? Wait. But she too melts away before I am given an answer, and I am returned to blackness once more. End of demo. Hey, you've reached the end of the demo. Thank you for playing. I'm Eli, aka KUYUAN, the solo dev behind Kit. If you'd like to keep up to date with the project, feel free to check out my Twitter or Tumblr pages, or follow the devlog on itch. If you have any questions, comments, etc., please let me know at any of the places I mentioned. There's also an optional Google form where you can leave feedback. Thanks again for making it this far. I really appreciate it. Have a good one. Kit by KUYUAN. Hello everyone, it's me, Gene, and before I end the video, I would like to say that if you do like the content, please subscribe to the channel. I have this goal by the end of the year that I would love to get at least 50 subscribers. So I know it's a measly goal, but I really do like narrating these visual novels, and it helps me keep going, I guess, and it lets me know that someone appreciates the videos or the content that I make. You know, even if it's just 50 people on the internet. But please guys, if you do like it, please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next stream or video. Bye!